Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So, last time I made a video I was tracking drums, and since then I've been listening to the tracks, and I've got a pretty good take that I was happy with. I did not capture it on camera, unfortunately, but I was just happy to get a really good take that sounded good. That was the most important thing. And now I've been working on cleaning up the tracks, and I've gotten the track cleanup simplified more than ever. I'm doing less and less with the tracks, mainly because I'm finding that I'm liking the sound of less manipulation, especially now that I'm recording things better. Like, I'm just getting a better signal at the very beginning, so I'm finding less desire to manipulate the signal because the signal is already sounding pretty darn good. And so the last few recordings I've made have been markedly better. I can just tell that the drum recordings are getting better. I don't know if it's just more discipline with the microphones and just time in the saddle, but I'm getting better levels, better response levels, better signal to noise ratio. It's subtle, but it's improving each time I do it. You know, every once in a while there'll be something that's like a setback and it's not as good as the last one. But for the past few recordings, I can tell that it's getting better. So I'm finding less desire to do too much manipulation, post-production. The only thing I like to do is just do a little cleanup. Here's the main things I like to do. After the track is done, I want to bring it in, and I want to silence things that don't need to be noisy. Like, let's say it's a vocal track. You might want to remove all the dead space whenever you're not singing, just to eliminate noise. Maybe the room is not quiet, or maybe you made some noise standing there shuffling the lyrics or whatever. Breathing. All that can be, removed. And you can do light noise reduction. I'm doing less noise reduction now, though, because I'm finding that it kind of kills some of the vibe, by worrying about noise reduction. So I'm backing away from that, but I do use my classic filters. I do some, a low frequency cut to eliminate some of that. And then I double the tracks by renaming them. So let's say if I clean up snare 1, I'm going to have snare 1A, snare 1B, and in this case I'm actually doing 3 snares. I've decided to add a 3rd snare after listening to the snare drums, and I've got space. It's going to do 3 snare drums, just more snare. Seems like it just sounds better that way. And all I have to do that is just make copies of the original file, name them A and B, or whatever you want to call them, and then drag them in to the Zoom, and now you can put them in each track. And double, triple track, whatever you want to do. Because you have 24 tracks that play back at once. That's kind of the beauty of the Zoom. That's why I like the unit so much. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to clean up these tracks, or at least what I do with my drums. And this is kind of what I've been doing for the last few projects. The only difference being now is that I'm going to use 3 snares instead of 1. But it's pretty much the same, protocol. If you've ever watched me do this, I change things as I learn new things, but this is probably very similar. So if you've already seen it, you've already seen it, but if you haven't, it might help you, who knows. So in order to connect the Zoom to the Mac, and I had somebody ask me a question, I've yet to be able to answer it. I can't find anything out about it, but the question was having difficulty with Windows 10 recognizing the Zoom. And I don't know about that. I don't use Windows with mine. I'm a Mac guy. But I looked it up, and I did notice that some people have had some difficulties, and typically they had to reload the software. That's what I would recommend trying to do. And I'm going to keep looking for answers and see if I can help you, with something a little more specific than that. But all you have to do in order to connect the Zoom to the computer, you don't even have to turn it on. This is what I like. You just take the little proprietary USB cable that comes with the unit. It's this little gray little cable here. It's kind of tangled up. Let me just release it. I hate tangled cables. But you don't even have to turn it on, which uses the least amount of power. So I'm going to plug it into my USB here. And when I do, I see this Zoom SD icon on the desktop, which I then obviously open up. And that reveals my mono tracks here. I've got all these tracks that I've created, and I created several of them for the drums because I did a couple different takes and decided, you know, which ones I was going to use. And so I've kind of figured out which ones that it starts with, and I believe that the snare starts with mono 003. And so what I usually do is I just drag that track, I'm going to just drag it right to the Audacity icon on the desktop. So I'm going to take mono 3 and just drag it over there. It immediately opens it. You can see it coming to life here. And now we're going to look at the track, and it's a little hot. But I've listened to it and it does not sound distorted. It sounds fine. It actually sounds really good. So what I'm going to do is just sort of take it down a little bit. So what I do is just take the whole track, go to Amplify, and I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to make the new peak amplitude be minus 1.5. I usually do, like on a master, something like 1.2. So I'm going to do 1.5 here and bring it down. You can see now the levels look good. Sounds great. No problems there. If there is some distortion, it's good sounding distortion. It sounds like a snare drum. So I'm happy with that. Just checking it to make sure, you know, I always kind of like just check and make sure I'm getting a decent playback of sound, just to make sure nothing weird is going on. And then I go up and usually do the classic filters next, and I'm searching for it here desperately. I don't know why I can't just quickly get to it, but there it is. I think I forgot what I was looking for. Classic filters, and that's the first filter type, the type 1, the Chevy Chev, at 100 hertz. And that's just a good ballpark, you know, average. Just seems to clean it up and get rid of stuff that doesn't need to be there and doesn't alter the sound too much. Just makes it sound a little leaner and a little less congested, I think, is the main thing I would say, that it just sounds cleaner when you remove those extra frequencies. Okay, now I'm going to export it, and here I made a mistake here and exported it as a AIFF file, which will not work. So once I realized I did that, I had to go back and you know, do that again, because that does not work. You cannot save that. And so what I did is I just saved it as an AIFF and then just went back into Audacity and just re-exported it as a WAV file. I probably could have just renamed it, but I just went through this process here just to make sure. So I reselected, because if you try to do 24-bit, if you try to do AIFF, anything besides a WAV file, the Zoom will not react to it. It just basically, it'll exist in the, you'll see it sitting there, but it will not respond to it. It will not play back. It won't exist inside the Zoom. You'll only be able to see it in the computer. Okay, so now that takes care of snare 1. Now what I'm going to do with each of these tracks is double them. And then with the snare, I'm going to try this time around to do 3 of them, just because I've got an extra track on the you know, on the other bank. So why not just fill it with that? And so I'm going to be doing that. The next thing I did after this one was I usually do the left overhead. Let me get to that one. That's the one I usually connect next. Yes, so next one I did was left overhead, and that is mono 4, I believe. It was mono 4. Let me make sure. No, that's mono 3. Wrong one. Yeah, it's mono 4. So mono 004 is my left overhead. That's the second mic. It's the ribbon mic here. And it covers the snare and the hats, sort of like the left side of the kit. I mean, it picks up the entire kit, but it's oriented towards the left, and I usually pan towards the left, maybe 40 to 50, you know, that way. And so I'm going to do the same thing here, clean it up, do a little classic filters at 100 and amplification, just to get this one as loud as the other one. So let's see here. Minus 1.5 is probably what I'm going to do. Yes, minus 1.5. Track looks really good now. Checking it just to make sure, looks good. Okay, now I'm going to export it as a wave, as 16-bit, that's important, and I'm going to call it LOH, which stands for left overhead 1. Left overhead 2 will be the other one. Very simple to understand. That way I have 2 of each one, and it just beefs it up and gives it a little more robustness, I guess you could say. And I don't save the changes, there's no reason. Okay, the next microphone is the right overhead. That's the other overhead mic that's sort of off to the right in that Glenn Johns style of miking. That one looks okay. I go here to classic filters. We're going to do 100K on that. That's the cutoff. 100 hertz, I'm sorry, not 100K on the cutoff. And then we're going to go to amplify and get that up to the same level as the other ones, minus 1.5, just so that we get a nice strong signal. I'm going to double this one too, so I call this one ROH1, as in right overhead 1. Just checking it here to make sure that everything's okay, that it doesn't look distorted or, you know, spiky. All the drum tracks look nice and even. I'm liking the way everything looks, so I'm going to export this one as well. I'm going to rename it ROH1. Yeah, and then the other one will be ROH2, and then I just at the end drag all those in. Okay, so now the last step is the bass drum. Let me find that one. Okay, so bass drum, same idea. Now with bass drum, I sometimes don't cut off at 100, just because I'll play it back, and if it sounds like it's making it sound less deep, you know, and I'm losing something, I might only do 40, and so that's what I did here. So I went to 40, did it at 40 hertz, a little less cut off so I can get a little bit more of that boom. I didn't want to lose any of that deepness. It felt like it lost some of the kick, some of the depth when I cut it all the way to down to 100 hertz. Okay, so my new peak amplitude here is minus 1.5. Everything's looking great. These tracks look fantastic. These are some of the better drum tracks I've outputted, so I'm going to export it, and I'm going to title it BD1, so that it'll be easy to double at BD2. So when this is all said and done, my tracks have, once I finish this and I retitle them, so I've just done snare, and I do snare 1. Now I've dragged all these into the Zoom, so my drums now are called ROH1, ROH2, snare 1, snare 2, LOH1, LOH2, BD1, BD2, and snare 3. So I got snare 1, snare 2, snare 3, left overhead 1, left overhead 2, right overhead 1, right overhead 2, bass drum 1, bass drum 2. So all of the drums now are accounted for. I only use 4 mics, but there's 8 drums outputted as far as what the Zoom sees. Actually 9, because I added that extra snare. So in the next video, I'm going to connect my PD amp to the thing, and we'll just play them back and see how it all sounds, you know, once we play the whole thing back. And I find that helps, because you can really kind of see what you have at that point, and you can start rehearsing guitar to it. That's really important. And I like to have my guitar amp on, the drums live playing back on me, and I can just start playing along to it and really starting to get a groove of it, you know, how I want to play the guitar part to that drum part. The energy, you know, like, because the drums are kind of heavy, and I'm trying to come across with this song with a lot of passion and a lot of energy. So yeah, the drums have been really important. Always important. I think it's probably the most important. I've said that before, but I really do believe that. So to get out of the Zoom, all you have to do is drag the icon to the desktop, off the desktop to the trash, and then once you're done, you're going to hit exit here to remove it. And You don't have to be powered on. You hardly need any power. If you have batteries in there, that'll be good enough. And it uses very little power. That's why I like that little feature that the Zoom offers. So, next step, we're going to do a quick playback of the drums. I'll just let you hear what they sound like, the completed take, and then it's on to guitars. Next time.